World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Good afternoon. Tony Rogers here, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War. And I always let people know the concept of the Art of War is William Anthony Rogers is my birth name. And my mom always used to remind me that Tony wasn't on my birth certificate. And of course, the Art of War is a classic that I've taught at City College. I read and write about it still often. It's one of the most sought after books of strategy for many centuries. Today, wow, it's a nice day. Summer's here. I'm glad Juneteenth is tomorrow, which I'm a Juneteenth baby. They made a holiday on my birthday, which you can't beat that. So again, it's also June is a lot of things that's happening. One, early voting has started, and I have as a guest a young man that I have known probably even before he knew himself. I saw him when he was in a stroller, and he's part of, I guess, the young guard that's starting to develop in this journey of Harlem leaders. His grandfather, Judge Bruce Wright, was a mentor to me and helped me at one point. I was going to law school. I was the president of the Black Pre-Law Society at City College and a couple of other groups. And Judge Wright would come and speak and talk to us. Before that, when I was in the Panther Party, Judge Wright used to help a lot of the brothers who were being arrested for no particular reason at all and if they didn't have the right type of reason to bring these brothers in, he would let them go. And unfortunately, the police gave him a nickname of Cut Him Loose Bruce, but we took that and made it into a positive thing because all he was doing was following the letter of the law, which now can become extremely vague. His father, Keith Wright, is another brother that I've known for many, many years. I knew him before he got into politics, and I saw him rise into the area, especially in his role as an assembly person. And now Jordan is following in some very big right footsteps. And we'll talk a little bit about him. I thought it would be important to let people know who he was. You can't always tell about a person by a poster or a soundbite. And it's important because all politics is local. And no matter what's going on wherever in the nation or the state, we need to make sure that the people who are representing us are people who understand this community. And Jordan Wright has come up with that understanding. And that's one of the reasons why there was no doubt in my mind, and many of the other of my colleagues who have reached out to Jordan because of his family, because he lives here, and he's lived here for all of his life. So I would like to give a warm welcome to Jordan Wright.
Morning. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing fine, Jordan. You have the unique situation of looking like both your mother and your father at the same time. I mean, when I look at you, I can see your dad, and I can see you got your mom's nose. So, fortunately for you, they were attractive because you're a handsome young man. So that's a good thing. But Jordan, as I had said before, I wanted to let people know who you were. Sometimes, we follow on the coattails of our grandparents and our parents, but you have established within your own right an interesting track record. You are was the campaign manager for yourself and the chief of staff, but you've done a lot of different things within that civic responsibility of the community. But tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started, your journey has taken to you where you are now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony, once again for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is Jordan Wright, and I have had the honor of growing up in Harlem my entire life. I have really enjoyed growing up here. I've done many different things in my community. In terms of the community itself, I'm a member of the Community Board 11, which is one of the most granular levels of government that we have. And it really meant a lot to me to be able to stand, in front of different people bringing, developments to the community, wanting to open up a restaurant or a bar in the community and having to go before me to make that clear, what their intentions were, what they wanted to do. I then had the pleasure and the honor of managing the campaign of now council member Yusuf Salam once we were rendered successful in that campaign. And after that happened, he hired me as his chief of staff. That meant a lot to me to have that opportunity as well, to currently have that opportunity, I should say, to really represent my city on a different level. Given my father, who you mentioned, his experience in state government, I've had the opportunity to see what state government looks like, and now doing city government on my own. It means a lot, and that's important to me.
Well, you're a young man, so this is a national show. So those who are looking from other parts of the country, this handsome guy may be talking to you from a federal position sometime soon. But the bottom line is you are a product of the Harlem community. You grew up here. Uh, your parents, I know them very well, and I understand uh, what their value system is, which I'm sure that they have given to you. Your grandfather helped me tremendously, which is why, you know, I guess even though your dad and I are close, uh, your, your grandfather, was a little closer because I needed him a little bit more, especially when I was in the Panther Party to get some thoughts. He would sit down and talk,
Mhm.
and he would come to, I was at City College, and he would come and speak and tell us about things. He was truly, truly a scholar, and I guess I'm speaking to the choir because I know that you know this, but for those who might not know about Judge Bruce Wright, he was truly a scholar. And I told you the story, and he had a very interesting sense of humor. I remember we were doing there used to be a race leaving from 22 West. It was a 10K, and I was running. I think I told you the story. And he was running, and he said, "Young Rogers, you let me pass you? you you let this senior pass you? This was some time ago. Now I'm a senior. I probably couldn't even walk that area." But he said, "Come on, don't let me embarrass you, man."
Did you catch up? Did you catch up to him?
Huh?
Did you catch up to him?
I kept him in sight.
Sure. Okay, that's good. I was in my history class when I was in high school. I was in 10th grade, and I had a teacher of mine who brought his father in for to train us in the mock trial. And he said, "All right, let's go around the room and let's say, what inspired you to be here." So obviously I say, my desire to, be a part of the community, learn more about, the government system. And, my grandfather also, Judge Bruce Wright, and he was like, "Stop right now." And he told me that he had a case where it was a decision where it was a meat truck where there was some liability when the truck passed, turned over on the highway, and all of like the contents came out. And every sentence in his decision, he talked about some kind of meat, some kind of animal, whether it was chicken, beef, pork, something, he put it in there. And he said it was the funniest decision he's ever read. And that was the only time he was before my grandfather, where he thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So that sense of humor definitely rings true throughout all different people.
Matter of fact, I think, and I have to keep reminding you, I think you told me that you have a picture when you were a little guy with your grandfather when you ran that probably that same race.
Yes, no, I will. When I go back to my parents' house, I will take a picture. I will take a picture that I will send it to you.
But so tell us, what are some of the things living in this community from a young person's point of view? What are some of the things that you think are important to champion as you move into whether a city or state politics?
I think there's three things that I think are crucially important. The first one is affordable housing. I think that's key to our community because we want to keep our Harlemites in Harlem or anywhere in this country. Truthfully, you want to be able. If you were born somewhere, you like it there, and the neighborhood is changing. That shouldn't mean you have to leave. I think that's paramount. Number two, economic and workforce development. There are a number of people throughout the city. I know in my city, in the city of New York, and Harlem specifically, and I'm sure this rings true again throughout the country, where you look up and you see the same people on the same corners, standing in the same areas of your city, wherever that may be. And I think that's wrong. And I think that our job network, job creation, job areas, they need to be creating a system where they're hiring folks, where they're giving them good jobs where they can, thrive in their life, where they know they're protected. They know that they're living in a place where they're not going to have to worry if they're going to have their job from day to day. They know their job is secure. They know they have a trade. They know they're trained in this job, and they can't. It doesn't just take a day to, a robot can't replace them. I think that's key. And then number three, I think that's also important, are youth services. I'm learning. My grandmother was a teacher at a school, PS 197 here in Harlem, and I went to go visit that school in my capacity as chief of staff for the Councilmember Salam, as we discussed earlier. And I learned that there are 6 and 7-year-olds that are joining gangs that are being recruited by 16 and 17-year-olds. I think that's disgusting. I think it's awful. And I think that we need to give our children something to do. I think that's key. And I think whether they're investing in after school programs, because not everyone's going to go to college, let's call it what it is, but you need to give them an opportunity, a lane to be successful. And then they need to start from day one. Mental health professionals in the schools, I think it needs to start from day one as well. So it's not a stigma when you want to go see a mental health specialist. It's like going to a doctor. It's like, you got to do something every day to make yourself better. So I think those are three things that I think are key: affordable housing, economic and workforce development, and youth services.
Well, again, those are the areas that tend to always be in the news. But the bottom line is there is also, I believe that from a spiritual standpoint, mind, body, and spirit. And you touched on something that I am very focused on now. It's the whole issue of mental health. We, all of us, especially some of the younger generation, even younger than you, have not always had the opportunity to understand exactly who they are, because they tend to the whole AI and phones, and it's sometimes they're talking about TikTok and all of those types of things that create some mental issues. I'm really, no matter what type of job you have or whatever, if your mind is not right, it's important to make sure that that's a focus. I'm glad that you have talked about that, because that's a very important area that sometimes, as you say, it's almost like a stigma. You don't talk about it, but everybody has that uncle or that cousin that comes to the holiday dinner and has a couple of and curses people out and all that stuff. Everybody has a person, but we don't always connect it to that. When you look at the housing situation, what would be some of the things you would like to accomplish, especially from a state situation? What are some of the things you would like to focus on as it relates to affordable housing?
Well, yeah, thank you for that question. As we think about housing in New York State specifically, we just passed a budget recently, and that budget had, a new 485X provision for developers and people who want to build housing in the state, as well as, tenant protections with good cause eviction, so on and so forth. And I think that we need to look at those, as they go forward for the next few years and see how they work. And then, add, subtract, take away, whatever we need to do to make sure that those, provisions are providing the best care for the housing situation we have right now in the state of New York, which is a dire one. Without fail, it is a dire one. I also think, if I can share a quick story, had the opportunity to go meet with there's a housing area called Savoy Houses here in Harlem, and I had the opportunity to go meet with them, do a rally in front of their property, the tenants where they were, rallying in protest of the conditions they were living in. And when I went in, they were terrible. They were deplorable. And, you have people who have market rate housing, rent controlled, rent stabilized, city FEPs, the list goes on. And I think it's key that, I don't care what you're paying in rent, you need to be somewhere livable. The conditions need to be livable. And they were unlivable when I saw them. And so I had the opportunity to go to ownership and say, hey, listen, this isn't great. The residents don't trust you. There are 3 things right here you can fix tomorrow, and that will show good faith. That will show that you're ready to work with them. And there are many other things that won't take a day, but you can start, but you have to do the small things first. And that's what they did. And I think, we're on a good track to, getting some changes, there. But, it means a lot to me to have that opportunity to be able to meet with people, to be able to say, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what we have happening. let's do some work together. And it means a lot to me to be in that.
Well, working closely with Councilman Salam, I know that there are things dealing with the criminal justice issue, especially as it relates to young black and brown males, that was reflective as far as even with yourself. A lot of people, since this is a national broadcast, a local national broadcast, some people may not know about the Central Park Four. Tell us a little bit about that and some of the things you've learned by working with yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna kind of start the story with kind of the middle of it, if I may. When I was in high school in the city of New York, I remember telling my mother and my father that I was in Central Park, hanging out with some friends late night, and the police started chasing us. And I was lucky enough to make it out of the park. And my mother, right then, when I was in high school, sat me down and told me the story of the Central Park Five. The Central Park Five were five young black and Latino men who were wrongfully accused of a rape of a white woman in Central Park. They were arrested, incarcerated um, for far too long because the day was too long. For example, Yusef Salam, the council member, went away for about 6.5 years, time that he will never get back with his family. Really, unconscionable stuff. And they all went to prison, and eventually, Corey Wise, he was in prison for the longest period of time. And one day, the actual assailant approached him and said, "You're still here? That's terrible because I'm the one who committed that crime."
Hmm.
And they were then, released. They were exonerated. And, Yusef wasn't released a free man. He was released. He was out on parole. So he had to really reintegrate himself back into society, as did some of the rest of them. But that's kind of the 30,000 foot in the air version of that story. There's many more granular details, but either way, it's a real success story. And I think it, on a more national level, it really rings true today, given that Donald Trump is running for president again, and he called for the death penalty for all five of them.
Took out full page ads.
Exactly, took out full page ads in the New York Times, where before they were even had their day in court, before they were even put in jail. He was innocent. They were guilty from the moment of arrest in his eyes.
Which now I understand in talking with you that now that Councilman Salam is able to be on committees and focus on legislation, there's some things that he's started to develop in order to begin to focus on the criminal justice system. Tell us a little bit about that and your experience.
Absolutely. So Councilmember Salam is currently the chair of the Public Safety Committee, which is probably one of, if not the most powerful committees in the New York City Council, because he has oversight over the NYPD. So given what I just said, I really can't overstate the importance of a member of the Central Park Five, now exonerated five as they're known, having oversight over the NYPD. It's a really powerful thing. They got to come before him for their budget. They got to come before him to really, see what they're doing every year. And the first hearing that we had actually with Yusef as the chair of the Public Safety Committee was on wrongful incarcerations and what the NYPD is doing about it. I think it means a lot. It's really powerful in the annals of the city that's what's going to be in the record, that Yusef Salam stood over the the Public Safety Committee, of the New York City Council.
Which is like coming full circle. I know that there has been a lot of criticism to the mayor. Actually, maybe about once a month I try to have a similar type of conversation with him. And what comes up is this whole issue of immigration. What's your take on this? How are you seeing this? And what are some of the things you would like to see or like to do with that?
I see it in a very interesting way, because the council member's office is very much near 116th Street in Harlem, Tony, which I'm sure you're aware has a large influx of our migrant community here in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk down the street, and it's a diaspora. People all different creeds and colors hanging out on the street. And some people, it takes some people aback, but I think that we need to be finding a place for these people, giving them jobs. Excuse me, as you hear the sights and sounds of 7th Avenue behind me. You have, any number of reasons that we have people that need to be committed to, they're committed to wanting to work. That's one thing I know. They're committed to wanting to work. They want to be a part of this country. They want to be a part of the real fabric of what it means to be an American. And I think we need to provide a pathway to that. And the way we do that is having them work. You know what I mean? We have them go to school. And, I think it's important that we keep them in this community. I think it's important that they have a way forward if they want a way forward. But you got to follow rules. You got to do what has to be done. And I think that, our New Yorkers, they're not going anywhere. So it's really important that we find a way for them forward in this community.
One of the other things, and this is also a state issue, I just had a meeting. I'm the president of the Harlem Tourism Board, which I talked to you a little bit about because I think there's a lot of job opportunities there. But there is a location, a storefront that actually is an illegal cannabis location that they just found out about, and has created some issues. What do you feel would be necessary to begin to create legislation to prevent that? Because it's not difficult. It's not hard. It should not be hard. But I was just talking to the manager of the hotel. It says, man, it's difficult trying to get these guys to comply with what's supposed to happen.
Yeah. On top of that, it's difficult, to evict people, as they are in, once they're in. And what I find that I've heard, again, I'm so sorry for the noise in the background. What I found is that it's difficult for people. It's difficult for, property owners, what have you, to find a renter for a space. And then once you find out that they've lied about what they want to do, then they come in, they're doing something totally different. It's like, well, what the heck? What am I supposed to do here? I know a lot of times that they say they're opening up a cigar lounge. Okay, cool. That sounds nice. All of a sudden, they come, they're opening up a smoke shop. They're selling illegal marijuana, illegal cannabis, especially hurtful in the time when we're trying to roll out legal cannabis in the state of New York. I think that doesn't do anybody any favors when you have, certain, if you are a weed smoker, you know what I mean? You have to be able to know you're getting clean stuff. And you don't know what you're getting when you buy illegal cannabis, and it's more readily available than maybe the legal stuff is. So, you want to take your time. I guess to answer your question, though, Tony, I think that in the budget, the state has allowed the NYPD some oversight to go into these stores and to close them down. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to provide more leeway for people, property owners, as property owners are giving out leases to commercial units. I think that we need to have a way for the tenants, for the property owners, that people are lying, to be able to get them out more easily. I think that's
right, especially if the lie creates some illegal activity, because that should, in many cases, be null and void in the case. What are some of the committees, when you go to Albany, what are some of the committees you would like to, if you could, be a part of?
Well, it's very hot today in Harlem, Tony. I think one thing that I'd like to do is join the Environmental Conservation Committee, because I think that the environment is the real future of our state, of our city. And I think it's going to be key for, Black folks to have a seat at that table. And I look forward to being a Black face fighting for environmental justice for not just our state, but obviously, village of Harlem. I think we need to be at the forefront of this technology as it comes up, whether that's solar paneling, wind turbine access. We need to be at the forefront of this technology to maintain that. I'm a child of Superstorm Sandy. I'm a child who watched The Inconvenient Truth. And so when I talk about environmental platforms, that's not something that I'm just, that's something that I really feel, because I saw it every day.
Well, the other thing that's frightening sometimes, but something that I guess we have to get used to, is AI and what it can do and what it can't do. Matter of fact, I was just looking at a report about how AI is beginning to have a direct relationship with the elections, as far as, and what's also frightening is that now they can have Keith Wright's face talking about stuff that is not Keith Wright.
Right. And well, Tony, there was a real instance where, there was an artificial intelligence clip that was created of my father saying, disparaging things about another Harlem elected that was used, as I can't even describe what it was used for because, either way, it's here. It's not the future. It's the present. We're seeing it right now. And we're behind the eight ball. But, Alex Boris in the state assembly, who's is a really good friend of mine. He has some great legislation going up that, I definitely would be in favor of passing the New York State legislature to. And one of the rules is that, it would demand that any campaign in the state of New York using AI, they have to say this was made using artificial intelligence. And I think that's key to, moving forward in this world. If you're using AI, people have to understand that you're maybe taking a job from somebody. Be very transparent about your usage of it, why you're using it, why it's helpful to you, so we can determine if it's really a detriment or not.
There's a lot of jobs in cybersecurity, but that's another issue that is becoming more and more focused based on everything that we do now is online. And especially for seniors like myself, sometimes it gets a little complex, filling out applications online and all of those types of things. I was in the Harlem Week meeting and I kind of come and just listen to what they're saying. And the stuff that we used to do by hand, they just do online now. I said, wow, what it's an important thing. I would think that you are in favor of supporting organizations like Silicon Harlem and other types of groups that try to allow for young people to become aware of the employment opportunities in the technology industry and cybersecurity, or all kinds of, even in coding and stuff like that. So you know more about that than I. I don't know what I don't know, but this is what you came up into. And it's evolving into something that I guess people like yourself will have to put some sort of focus on to make sure that it doesn't get too far out of whack.
Absolutely, and kind of putting a bow on everything I said. The kids who I talked about earlier who are joining gangs at very young ages, they need to be putting their time in, learning code, understanding what technology is, so they can be a part of the future of this country, future, the world is, in the clouds on technology. So I think we need to start really young so they can learn the code at a very young age, and it can be like a second language.
And it's important to do what you're doing. I know Dave Chancellor Banks is a good friend, and actually it hasn't come out yet, but they have developed a new curriculum dealing with the contributions of African and Caribbean Americans, as well as African and Caribbean ex-slaves. I guess that's the best way to deal with it. I know when I was coming up, it was never, we never had that type of information. But things like that are also important because that's how we begin to understand who we are.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And I think that we need to be at the beginnings of that in the state of New York, making sure, we understand who we are. And that's a part of our education. So, children don't learn about that elsewhere. You know what I mean? That's not an extracurricular activity. It definitely needs to be involved in the curriculum, from the beginning.
One of the last things, because I know that you're running, I don't want to take up too much of your time. But of course, as the president of the Harlem Tourism Board, I have to focus on tourism. One of my mentors, and I know you knew of him, Percy E. Sutton, his whole focus was tourism will be the savior of New York State, and of course, New York City, and of his beloved Harlem, which is 49 years ago, we did Harlem Day, focusing on that. And as you know, we're going into the 50th anniversary. I appeal to you to support this whole Harlem tourism and hospitality industry because it is growing, and we will need young people like you to create and develop ways that allow for young and old as far as in training. Matter of fact, and I forgot to mention this when we were talking before, there is a proposal that the Harlem Tourism Board has for the city council with yourself to train tour guides and to also create a way of having young people in college youngsters develop the Harlem tourism website, goharlem.org. So once you get in Albany, I'm going to be coming up there and knocking on your door.
I'm ready. Please do. Please do. I'm definitely ready for that, Tony.
Jordan, are there any thoughts that you want to share with people? I really wanted people to see who you were. As I said before, you can't tell a person by a poster. There are a lot of people running, a lot of people, a lot of stories. Some should be running, or we should be chasing them. But nevertheless,
right.
Is there anything that you would want people to know as far as who you are and why you feel that you should be representing them?
Yeah, I think I would like people to know that I'm a real child of this village. I grew up here. A number of people have seen me play, been around this community, Harlem Junior Tennis, Harlem Little League, Harlem Junior Knicks. The list really goes on. And I'm a real son of Harlem. I have the best interest of this community in mind. I am looking forward to being a part of this community for many years to come, win, lose, or draw, truthfully. I have, my track record is proven, across this community. I've done a number of things to make sure people know who I am, why I'm doing this. And I'm not doing this because, I'd like to run for office. I'm doing this because I want to make a real change. So I implore everyone to let them know that early voting in New York City has begun. Make sure your voice is heard. And when you go do that, I hope you're doing the right thing.
Well, again, that was what we were using for both your grandfather and your dad. You got to do the right thing.
Yep.
But I am proud of you, brother.
Thank you, Tom.
A lot of people will say, well, you did interviews, Jordan. Why are you? Because I said, I want as many markets that I have to understand who this young man is, and for the exact same reason that you indicated. You have been a part of this community. You are a son of this community. There are people who have come to Harlem and maybe developed a 2 or 3 year understanding of where 125th Street is and think that they're authorities. But you have been there. And I think that the obligation that at least I have as being a person who's been doing this for over 60 years is to make sure that we do as much as possible to support people like you. And so that's why I keep bugging you to get on this show or do this. Or
never bugging me. Never bugging me. It's my pleasure.
All of those types of things is because you or me. I mean, your family. Your grandfather, your father helped tremendously as far as many of the things, not only for the organizations and the groups that I've been in with, but just period. So it's a no-brainer to try to do as much as possible to allow for people to understand why Jordan Wright is the right person to do what you're going to do. So again, my brother, thank you. Proud of you. And no matter what happens, you're going to always be a winner. You're going to always be a winner. So listen, man, go ahead. I know you got a lot of campaigning to do, so I don't want to keep you up. But I did want to make sure that the market that looks at Soul City and the Greater Harlem Chamber, which will make sure that they get this clip, know who you are. And I think we've done some work in making sure that happens. So I appreciate you, and thank you for giving us some time.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Please, if you want to learn more about me, check me out on my website, Wright, my last name, WRIGHT, the number 4, Harlem.com. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate it.
Congratulations, and you got to make sure that I get an invite to the celebration, and tell your dad. He asked me that I want to come and make some phone calls. I said, yeah, I'll do that.
I'll plug you.
Whatever I could do, you have my number. Whatever I can do to help as we winding down, you got it.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of
Take
your day.
care.
Thank
My
you, everybody.
regards to everybody, and a shout out to William and Sophie and all of your team who are trying to make all of this happen.
Absolutely.
Take care, man.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Yeah, surely. Again, this is an opportunity that does not always come to be able to promote and allow for those who you understand and to have them have that type of support that I believe is extremely important. The continuum of service is very important, which is why WHCR, Harlem Community News, Soul City TV are extremely important vehicles because it gives us a chance to change our narrative. So again, I would like to thank Matt McCoy for this platform. Many of you may not know this is the only fully owned Black national broadcast network in the country, and Matt has done well. I'd like to take the time to thank everybody who came out on Father's Day for the 50-second skyscraper race, which was a wonderful activity that took place on Sunday. And one of the things, and you'll hear more about this, but for those who are in the city, the Harlem Comedy Club, or the Comedy in Harlem Club, has moved from the east side. It's now on the Central Harlem at 147th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. And the Harlem Tourism Board will be hosting a special night there on July the 27th. So put a hold on your calendar, because we're trying to get as many people as possible, members and delight to support Nikki and Jamie from the Comedy Club in Harlem. It's a new business. They're members of HTB, and we'd like to reach out to them and make sure that they're happening. Last Harlem Week is on its way. If you are interested in exhibiting or performing, perhaps even though that is pretty full at this point, but there are still some opportunities. You go to harlemweek.com, and if you call 212-862-7200, which is one of the busiest numbers now, but you will be able to get things going. We need volunteers. If you go to harlemweek.com, there's an application for scholarships every year, thousands of dollars. Every sponsor who comes to Harlem Week has to do at least one or two scholarships so that we can, again, have that continuum. Senior Citizens Day, there's a little bit or something for everyone. And this will be the 50th year. Harlem Day is always the third Sunday in August. So August the 18th will be the 50th year that we've been continually, even through the pandemic, we went virtual, but it's been a continuum for 49 going on 50 years. So it has been a major turning point in many of the things, whether it's tourism, economic development, and the like. So again, we'll have some interviews and we'll be talking a lot. Soul City does a lot of filming during that time, so you'll start seeing a lot of stuff that's going on. This whole virtual reality thing is somewhat new to me, and but I'm learning to ride the wave. So again, this is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War. I am happy and grateful for Soul City for the platform to be able to come up every Tuesday to talk and share information with you. Hopefully, God willing, we'll continue to do this, and I hope to see you next week. Thank you. Take care.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.